You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm Matt McGackie, the vocalist of Cryptopsy and the host of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast, where I sit down with fellow metal musicians. We talk all about their lives and music while sharing killer craft beers. If you've ever wanted to sneak backstage and share a beer with one of your favorite musicians, well, Vox and Hops is the podcast for you. This week on the podcast, I dropped a killer episode with Kelly Schaefer of Atheist. There is this episode and over 440 other ones to help you enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. So what are you waiting for? It's time to become a Vox and Hops head. Cheers.
What is up, good people? Welcome to the podcast. If this is your first time, thanks for downloading. Thanks for tuning in. If you're returning, like a returning customer, no, that's not exactly it. But if this is not your first time, thank you for coming back. I hope you enjoy this episode. This was a really fun one, and we'll get into it real quickly. But I do have a couple things I want to tell you about first. Namely, I popped up a couple new YouTube videos. I've been being more active on YouTube lately. You can search The Tone Mob or go to the link in the description for that. If you want to subscribe and all that stuff, it really helps me out a lot. It's just another channel that I need to explore and find my way through and provide more content and stuff for you. On that note, one of the videos I put up this weekend was a demo of the Big Ear Pedals Albee. I gave that a pretty thorough going through. And the other one is something that I've talked about a lot on this podcast, where I'll just get some pedals out and just see where the sound takes me. No real intention to it, no real expectation of anything. Just see where the sounds take you, or me, rather. And this time I actually set up some mics and recorded it so that I could, share it with people. So if you want to go there, it's called Halloween Zone Out, I think. Halloween Zone Out 2020, something like that. It's on the YouTube channel. You can find it. And I was kind of surprised with how it turned out. I really, really liked how it sounded. It was definitely like a shoegazy, mess of stuff, but it was a lot of fun. So if you like that kind of thing, put that in your YouTube viewing schedule. I'd really appreciate it. Okay. Without further ado, let's get into this week's episode. Here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Tone Mob Podcast, the show about guitar tone and the people behind it. I'm your host, Blake Weiland, and with me today, I have Nick Rogers of Dirty Haggard Audio. What's going on, man?
Hello. How's it going?
Hanging in there. The sun is shining and the air is clean, and I'm not trying to evacuate. So, things are looking up around here.
Yeah. Breathing is good, and not having to run away from imminent immolation.
Yeah,
very
it's
good.
It's a nice thing. I mean, in 2020, we just have to consider that a win. That's basically what we got to do.
Yeah. Small victories.
Yeah, that's right. Well, good times. Yeah, so you and I, we met. I mean, it's so weird to meet a new person in 2020 that you've never spoken with or met in person before. We met in the Fred Meyer parking lot in North Portland with masks on. So yeah. It's the most bizarre way of meeting new people. I really hadn't even ventured out that much up until that point, so it was really a strange thing all around. But yeah. what are we even doing?
What's that?
I said, what are we even doing? Who knows?
Oh yeah. We're surviving.
That's right.
Yeah, no, it's really funny. It is really interesting to meet new people now, because it's like, hey, I don't know what your face fully looks like. I'm not going to recognize you later, probably.
I know, because you pull the mask down for a second, from 8 feet away. Here's what I look like, and it's like that's not enough to really remember or retain anything. I'm like, I can't remember at all.
On the plus side, though, you can go out without brushing your teeth and no one will be offended.
This is possibly true. Depends on, Well, I guess if you're staying away from each other, that is probably accurate. But I don't know. I don't like not brushing my teeth. It gets grainy and weird.
Yeah,
Maybe that speaks more to my diet than anything else, actually. Maybe I should stop talking about that.
I don't. Yeah, after a few cups of coffee, it's you kind of need to clean that out a bit.
Gets sketchy.
I do, at least. Yeah.
Yeah, same. Well, tell me about yourself. We talked about your story a little bit there in the parking lot, but I don't know, how you came to start building effects, like, all this stuff. You were wearing a synthesizer shirt when I met you, so I imagine that's part of your life as well. So what's your musical backstory? How did you get to doing what you're doing today?
Well, actually, the synthesizer thing, that's an old band T-shirt. So I used to play bass in like an electro rock band. Yeah. So anyway, before that though, like, I started out as a teenager playing guitar, and I wanted to pursue, being a rock star, because of course, who doesn't? But as, maturity took hold, it was like, yeah, it's probably not likely. I should probably do something a little bit more economically viable. So I guess I didn't really choose the right path at first. I went to a recording school. So I learned how to do, yeah. Put myself pretty deep in debt, learning how to do recording and all that stuff. And then I tried that for a few years, got a few cool gigs. Like I did make a sound effects library for some Los Angeles company, and I got a couple tracks featured in some like really low level TV shows, but nothing that, it was beer money basically. And so I went back to school for electronics, and yeah, pretty much as soon as I got out of school, I just started diving into pedals, because why wouldn't I do something that's music related with an electronics degree?
I don't know that much about, like, I was going to say, I don't really know that much about electronics. Well, let me backpedal. I know just enough about electronics to be dangerous. I don't have any formal education in that stuff at all. I assume that there are different levels and different types, kind of like there's different types of like computer science things you can do. Like I know a lot of electricians, but that's not really the same thing as what, like working on computers or pedals or something like that. Like how does all that break down? How does that work?
Yeah, I don't know if I can articulate that. I don't even know how to go about that. I guess there's different levels of like complexity. So there's definitely like you can make a circuit with like 2 transistors, and it's it's super basic and it just does what it does. But then you can make it really complex, and you can use like all like the Vactrols that you use in like tremolo circuits, and all kinds of like various regulators and current sources and all that crap. And then you can advance from there to integrating digital chips and all that stuff. And so, having digital to analog converters and analog to, did I just say analog to digital and digital to analog? Okay. Yeah. That's what you do.
Yeah.
And so, it's just all about like, building more complex blocks on top of the really simple stuff.
That's kind of what I've started to gather after talking to so many different builders and things. It's like, it seems like a more intricate version of like Legos. It's like, okay, you have this type of circuit that does this, and then when you combine it with this other type of circuit, now together they do a different thing than they do individually. And I'm like, okay, my brain can start to wrap around that concept a little bit.
And then definitely as like a learning tool, like if you start sectioning a circuit off into each individual block, like for example, there's your oscillator. Again, if we're talking about like maybe a tremolo or something, like it's just so much easier to be like, here is your preamp section, and then just like section that off and try to understand that. And then like, there's your oscillator, try to understand that. Here's your power amplifier, try to understand that. it's like it's really confusing when you just look at the entire circuit and just try to analyze like, point A to point B, like what's going on start to finish. Like that's when you confuse yourself and start feeling like discouraged and all that.
Yeah, I know that feeling. I've stared at schematics before and I'm just like, well, there's a ground and I don't know what any of that other stuff is. I better ask somebody who knows more than I do. Our electronics class in high school was, how should I say this? Actually, I don't think this guy listens. I don't even know if he's a teacher anymore. It was kind of a joke. Everyone that took it kind of knew the deal with that particular teacher. And the deal was, as long as you didn't cause any problems, you could kind of do whatever you wanted. And that included not necessarily being in the class. And so you could just kind of come and go and, screw around. And pretty much everybody got A's and B's. It was a very,
Nice.
very loosey-goosey type of class, which, my teenage self really apprecited. But as far as gaining any electronics knowledge, I learned how an LED worked, and that's about it. That's about the extent of it.
Yeah, I had that experience with a couple of my teachers. Like this one guy, this guy's the most incompetent human being on the planet, I swear. Like he gave us the same, the final and the midterm was the exact same exam because in between that, like he didn't teach us anything. And he was the kind of guy where if you got confused, he would ask you more questions that are over your head. And so it's like, dude, if I don't understand like the ground level, then how am I supposed to understand like, story number 6? Like what are you trying to do to me right now? And then this other guy, he taught my radio frequency class. Like he tried to use the circumference of the Earth in some calculation one day, and then like 6 weeks later, we're doing the final exam, and we had to like memorize what the circumference of the Earth was in meters. And it's like, dude, can you like give us that variable, please? What are you doing?
Yeah, the whole memorization and testing thing, like I get like it's good to like know and have certain things just kind of ready to go in the back of your head. But at the same time, I feel like memorization is kind of a skill in and of itself. But if you don't practice it, if you don't continue to try to memorize that specific thing, then you forget like almost immediately. At least I do. I just remember like, there'd be various hobbies that I would get really into at different points in my life. And I used to know everything about them. All these little details. Like I'm still a big muscle car fan, but when I was a teenager, I was a really big muscle car fan. And I could tell you like, the exact year of the Chevelle, because the windshield had this kind of bezel around it, or whatever. And I can't pull those things out anymore. I don't remember them as well as I used to. Certain models, sure, but I don't know how much memorization really is all that valuable when it comes to, certain fields. I don't know. I wonder about that with our testing procedures and stuff these days.
Yeah, I think a much more valuable skill is knowing where to look for the answer. Like if you need a formula for some kind of like you're trying to figure out like, distance versus time or something. Like if you don't remember the formula, but you know how to find it, I think that's much, much more valuable for you.
Yeah, I mean, because you're never going to remember everything, right?
Right.
It's always going to be something you got to look up, something you got to investigate. Like you can't know everything. I mean, some people can. Some hyper geniuses can remember everything, but your average person's got to Google. Googling is a skill.
Yeah, and especially like, I mean, I don't know what they told you when you were growing up, but everyone is like, well, you're not going to have a calculator in your pocket when you get on the job, and it's like, haha. I have a smartphone. Not only do I have a calculator, but I also have the internet and like, every other app you could imagine.
Yeah.
So it's like it's kind
we
of
must be
irrelevant.
about the same age. I remember
Yeah.
that all the time.
Yeah.
You're not going to have a calculator. I'm like, well, no, and I can do basic addition and subtraction, no problem. But I don't really need to like remember how to calculate the area of a circle. I don't really need to know that. That's not information. Somebody out there is screaming at us right now. Like, yes, you do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to say that the entire time I was a forklift operator, I never had to, calculate, the square root of 72.
I didn't either when I was a forklift operator. I never, that was never a thing that I needed to worry about. You did need to know about angles and how if you lift something real heavy up real tall, it gets kind of tippy. You did need to know about that. So I guess that's sort of math, but I don't know.
This is your fulcrum. Good to go.
Or was that more like physics? I don't know. I'm so uneducated. I shouldn't be commenting on education. I'm just like a moron over here. Like, oh, I don't know. I talk into microphone. But yeah, man. So we get so sidetracked on this show. It happens all the time. So let's talk about your pedals. Like, what did you first start making? Like, you got out of school, you were like, I want to make pedals. What was the first thing you made?
So, the very first pedal that I ever made, it was a clone of a Fender blender. And this is actually like before I even had the idea of starting a business. I just made it because like I found some info on it online, and I was like, whoa, that thing's cool. So I made the circuit, and then I figured out how to use a PCB creator program. And so I sent off for the PCBs, put it all together, plugged it in, and it worked, but the noise floor was insane. It was like maybe 10% lower than the signal level. So it was like, okay, it functions and it sounds cool, but it's entirely unusable. And so I just, did some random research, learned more things about electronics, and I reduced the noise by like 98%. And that pretty much right there was me being like, oh, I got something here. I want to do stuff with this idea. 'Cause like also what I've done, like I said, I went to music school. And so, I tried to record bands and stuff. And I always had like the cheapest, worst equipment possible and the worst environments to record in. And so background noise and all that was just, I mean, it was like the devil of my life. So yeah, having a successful pedal build and successfully making it shut up when you're not playing, it just kind of put that idea in my head. Like, well, maybe I could do this. Maybe I could make pedals that are dead quiet and still really high gain, and maybe people would like that.
So what did you figure out on that build? Like, what was it that was causing it to be so noisy? Because I know we have a lot of aspiring builders and things that listen to this show. So what did you figure out?
So one of the theories that I actually never fully tested was like the size of the input capacitor. Like it was basically letting every single frequency that might exist down to like 1 hertz into the circuit. So I did reduce the value of that cap so that it was chopping everything below like 20 hertz off, just in case there was any little rumbling that existed anywhere in my vicinity that was getting into the circuit.
Right.
I mean, that's always just a really good idea. If you want to get rid of like the noise and mud, you put a high pass filter so that you chop some of that off. But the main thing was power supply ripple. I was using a really terrible power supply at the time, and the schematic I found, it called for just like a 10 microfarad cap across the power terminals, which was just grossly inefficient. It's really standard for every pedal company just about to use just a 100 microfarad across the power terminals, but I found that even isn't really that great. So the main thing that I did was put an RC filter at the power supply input. And I made it like really aggressive. So basically everything above 5 hertz was being attenuated. So like 5 hertz is the negative 3 dB down point. And then when you get to 50 hertz, it's down negative 20 decibels and so on. Yeah, that was the main thing. And then I guess later in subsequent designs, it was applying noise gating, which I don't know. I don't know if I should be all proprietary about that. Probably not.
Ooh, proprietary.
Yeah. Using, diodes as noise gates and biasing transistors so that they're kind of off when you're not playing.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's interesting with like fuzz circuits in particular, how many of them, I don't want to say it's built in, but sort of just by the nature of how things are constructed, they sort of have a noise gate naturally. And some of them are really aggressive, and some of them I've found that they sustain just right. And then when you're not playing, it's quiet. It's like, wow, this is impressive, because a lot of people just let the noise pour out, baby, which is also fun. I'm a very noise tolerant guitar player. I'm always like kind of astounded how many people are like, that's so noisy, I could never play that. And I'm just like, oh, I didn't notice. So, I don't know. It's probably because I've played P90s and stuff for so long. I'm just kind of accustomed to the buzz. It's just part of the experience for me. But people get really sensitive to it, and I get it. For certain styles of music, it doesn't really work.
I guess, yeah. If you're just kind of jamming out by yourself, like it's whatever. But I always just found it like when you're doing a recording and when you're using, when you're in someone's garage and there's already like too much reverb and there's already like, people above it, like, stomping on the floor and stuff. Having that extra buzzing, like when someone's doing some kind of like some riff with a whole bunch of breaks in it, especially if like the whole band cuts out and then all you hear is that like buzzing in the background. Like that really bothered me over the years. And so yeah, I became like ridiculously anal retentive about it.
I mean, especially with like more like djenty stuff, or like you said, when the whole band stops and there's just that one guy going, well, that's usually but it doesn't really work sonically. And then it just makes the engineer have to do more stuff. And then if you're playing live, it's its own problem. And yeah, maybe I should use my MXR Smart Gate a little more often, but I don't. So, that's another thing about gates, which is maybe you're the guy to talk to since you are so picky about it. I have a hard time, not with like gates in pedals specifically, but dedicated noise gates. A lot of people really like the ISP decimator, and I didn't like that one very well. It would either work and like cut the noise where you would want it, but like all your sustain was gone, or it wasn't enough to actually like get rid of the noise. That was my experience with the regular ISP decimator. I like the Smart Gate better. Do you have a preferred noise gate?
So arguably, yes. I've had really terrible luck with like any kind of pedal gate, like exactly the same issue. Like it either doesn't do it right, like it chops off way too much, or it just doesn't do anything. Or I found that like it's got a built-in release that you can't really do anything about, and so you do some really like quick breaks, like da-da kind of stuff, and
yeah,
in the little gap there, you hear the noise floor like it starts out full bore and then fades down, and it's like that just sounds terrible.
It's almost worse.
Yeah, I'd rather have it not do that, because then that adds that extra element that's just kind of distracting. So, I really like I really like the noise gates that no one has access to, like the ones that are in those really expensive SSL recording consoles. Because
of course,
yeah, right. Because then you can set like what's the term for it? Like the threshold or whatever. So you can have it start at whatever decibel level, but then you can have it only cut out maybe 20% of the noise or 30% of the noise, and still, so it still like retains some of the noise floor. It just cuts it down a bit, so it's not just like full volume or mute. It's anywhere in between those two. And so like that makes it sound, in my opinion, much more like natural and non-distracting.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess, I don't know. I really need to actually investigate a lot of dedicated like pedals just so I know, because I actually get this question a lot and I never have an answer for anyone.
Do you think it might be such a thing that, I mean, you know, you don't have to say anything if you're working on it, but like, do you think that's something you could break out of those SSL consoles and make independent in pedal form?
That's really funny because I recently got that chunk of the schematic for the console, and I'm really thinking about it. Yeah, it calls for like positive and negative 16-volt rails, so that's kind of hard to do with a single 9-volt supply, but I feel like you could adjust everything for the lower voltage and it would still work.
I wonder what the mad geniuses over at Chase Bliss and Maris did, because I want to say that that's the power supply they're running in that current the CXM 1978 they just released. I want to say that I thought in their literature it said like it was running internally, it was running that, but I could be wrong. I don't want anybody to quote me on that, but that sounds right to me.
Yeah, there's definitely
a 9-volt power supply. Right,
yeah, and then you can get a what is it, a charge pump to generate a negative 9-volt line. Those are
might be
worth
a little exploring.
Bit. Yeah. They always add a lot of complexity. Like every time I've tried to use one, it's got a switching frequency of about, well, the one that I have specifically, it has a switching frequency of 10 kilohertz, and so it's still in like the audible frequency range, and so you need to use like inductors and all kinds of clever smoothing to kill that annoying, like that really shrill like frequency. Yeah, so it I don't know, it's just a pain in the anus, and so I just haven't done it yet because I'm, you know, I avoid anus pains.
Well, I mean, as you should. It just makes sense. Don't we all? So are you playing music currently? Do you have a band or a project?
Yeah. I play bass in a band called Beast Mountain right now. It's
Ooh, I like that.
It's like kind of doom, kind of doom rock, clean vocals. It's funny how many times I've said I play in a doom band and people go, "Oh, Cookie Monster vocals?" Like, no, but I don't have a problem with Cookie Monster. Shut up.
Right. I love cookies. Leave me alone.
Yeah. Monsters are cool too.
That's right.
Yeah. No, it's really fun. I joined after they recorded an album. So I'm like, you know, a fill-in guy for the time being, I guess. I don't know. That's not true. But yeah, no, it's really fun. I really enjoy playing that style of music. The previous project I was in was like super poppy rock, something or other. Pop rock emo or some crap like that. So yeah, and then when I'm by myself, I do like really aggressive experimental industrial metal. So it's a nice variety.
Yeah. What I've noticed, you know, when I was a kid and like coming up in like the sort of punk rock like Warped Tour thing, I always had everything very compartmentalized in my head, and like I was like, oh, these bands tour together and these bands tour together. But what I didn't like ever picture happening was like this big mishmash of things. Like now you see, you know, the dudes from Slayer commenting on the dudes from My Chemical Romance's page, and like you see, like you really see like the music community and the rock community kind of in general. Like I think we've become like all blended together in some way. Like you said, you were playing in some pop rock project, and now it's a doom band. Not the same band, obviously, but now you're playing in a doom band. And most people, like I want to say like 15 years ago, wouldn't expect somebody to make a jump like that.
Right.
I don't know if that's just
yeah.
my perception or what do you think?
I definitely felt like when I was in my high school years. Can you hear the dog in the background? He's absolutely losing his mind.
I can. You need to go take care of him?
Yeah, let me go yell at him real quick.
Okay. All right, cool.
Armin, what are you doing? All right, my bad.
No sweat.
Okay,
We can,
so
we'll
yeah.
just punch right in. We'll just punch in after my question, and you can
Right on.
answer it there. Okay.
All right. Train of thought. Okay, yeah. So yeah, when I was in high school, I definitely felt like people were still isolating themselves in small groups based on like styles of music that they listen to, which, I mean, it's so strange to think about it now, but it's like, yeah, those really like the kids who listen to punk rock. Those are the guys who listen to metal. There's always the group of people who are like the ICP Juggalo dudes. And yeah, there was like very little crossover, but yeah, definitely lately it's like, why do we have to do that? No, there's no reason. We can all like each other's stuff a little bit. It's like a Venn diagram, right?
Yeah, there's way more overlap. I recently just found this band called If I Die First, and they're like a straight up like Seosin like screamo band, but they're made up of a bunch of like, I don't know the history of the band that well, so I don't want to get in trouble if I'm like speaking inaccurately, but they're made up of like a bunch of like SoundCloud like emo rappers, which is like the just like not at all what you would expect. And then you turn it on and it's like, this is from 2007 is what it sounds like. It's kind of, I think I'm just realizing as I get older that people just like music. Like there's a lot of old hardcore guys that go on to make like alt country records, and you know, it's all just music, man. It's all good.
Right. Yeah, and there's legitimately no reason to be hating on other styles.
I mean,
Like,
you can not like something. That's okay.
oh yeah,
Like,
absolutely. You can absolutely have preferences, but to just be like, oh, that's fake, that's poser music. Like, yeah, shut up.
Yeah, I know. I think back to the things that I thought and said back in those days, and I'm like, what? Who are you? You could barely even play guitar back then. And like you can barely play now. I mean, for that matter. Like, it's like, why? What kind of like weird gatekeeperism were you doing? Where like, this is real punk and that's not real punk. But like this band gets a pass because they used to play in some hardcore bands. So that's okay if this pop punk band tours with it. It's just the dumbest thing I've ever. It's so stupid. It's amazing that it still kind of exists in certain like circles. I think it's becoming less of a thing. I think the tolerance for that is going down substantially.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's still pretty prevalent in like black metal and stuff, like the really extreme genres. But I think everyone else is kind of just like, I don't really want to close myself off to what other stuff is really great. I'd rather just listen to it all.
Yeah, exactly. I want to listen to Fit for an Autopsy and Billie Eilish, and I don't want anybody to say anything about it. I can do what I want. This is fine. Which that new Bond track that she did is actually very good, I thought. I don't know if you've heard it or not, but
it actually sounded. Yeah, I heard like a 30-second clip. It actually sounded legit.
I quite enjoyed it. I quite liked it. I'm very excited for that movie, but it just got postponed, so I'll have to wait. Thanks, Corona.
Yeah.
So what's your bass rig look like?
So right now I'm playing it's an Ibanez SR or something or other. It's one of those sound gear. Really common bass.
Yeah, those are cool though.
Yeah, no, it feels amazing. It's like it's one of the most comfortable basses I've ever had. So I have that. I have that going into a really minimal pedal board. I get the name of this pedal wrong literally every time. One day I will actually like remember what it's called. So it's a DIY. Damn it. It's like a dual DIY overdrive from Damnation Audio. I actually got it. Alec from Mask Audio. He sent it along. Like I bought one of his pedals, and he's just like, "Oh, here you go. Here's a PCB." And so I was like, "Oh, dual. I think I could use this for bass." And so I kind of modified some of the values so that I basically have like a really mild overdrive with like all the lows through one side, and then it's like a rat pedal on the other side. So then you merge the two, and then you've got like a separate volume for each. It's great. It makes, I say this literally every time. I probably sound like a massive idiot, but it makes it sound like there's a freight train just blasting out of my speakers. It's so big and awesome sounding. And so, and then I have it's the bass clone from Electro Harmonics, like their chorus specifically for bass. And then that's going into a PV headliner. Like it's a really powerful, like 1,000 watt little head. And then I have what is it? An SWR 4x12 and a Carvin 4x12. So it's like it's a pretty big loud setup.
So is that a 1,000 watt solid state? Is that what that is, or how? Okay, I was like, wow, it's what would that be like if it was tube?
Yeah, if it was tube, that'd be cool. It's like one of the Class D style amps where it's like really tiny and lightweight, but has, a billion watts somehow.
I like those. Those are fun to mess with. It's just sometimes just fun to get crazy loud. I sometimes forget how loud my Sun Beta lead is. I don't remember how many watts that is, but it's solid state. But it will break my face if I turn it up too loud. It is so loud. I'm pretty sure that's the loudest amp I own. I don't know if that's louder, or I have a Fender 75, which is a 75 watt tube head. And that's really loud too, and very clean. But
nice.
1,000 watts is something else. That's some serious wattage.
Yeah, I don't think it's. I mean, I think it's 1,000 watts if you're dealing with like 10% distortion. You could probably only get like 500 watts out of it before it starts to just break up in a really horrifyingly terrible way.
Oh, not a good kind of breakup.
No, like the solid state, like, what are you doing? It's broken kind of breakup.
I like that sometimes. Sometimes that's fun.
It's kind of funny though, because playing with the band, I'm playing against like two half stacks, and like they're both down tuned. And I can still just put my volume at like 3 out of 10 and just overpower them. So I'm not really hurting for power.
What tuning are you guys playing in most of the time?
So that's kind of weird. I play a 5-string currently. I'm going to be replacing it with a 4-string, but so our lead guitar player plays a 6-string, and then our rhythm guitar singer plays a 7-string. So everyone's kind of in different tunings. I'm in standard with the low B. I think they're both in some form of like open tuning. I know our singer is in an open B tuning. I don't actually know what our lead guitar player tunes in.
I think it's the same.
Around. Yeah, I think it's the same, but that piece of information is missing from my brain.
What kind of guitars are they rocking usually?
So lead guitar, he's got a SG into. Oh man, it's the PV 6505. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And then our singer has some Ibanez, some really fancy Ibanez, and then he's got like some rocker verb that I really like the sound of.
Oh man, every time I think of that amp, I'm like, oh, I think that my amp gas is like taken care of by my Bensons, and it largely is. But there's a few things, like a 5150 is one of those, a Soldano SLO. Well, I used to say the 100, but a 30 would probably actually be better for me. And then the orange rocker verbs. I want a rocker verb, something fierce, and I have for years. I need to make that more of a priority in my life.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about them until I joined the band and he started playing it. And yeah, it's like holy S word. That's some nice tone.
It's just there's something about that particular amp has the orange sound, and it's definitely its own like low mid focused thick growl thing that just there isn't anything else that really does that except a good orange. And
right,
man,
yeah, that mid range. It's got the mid range like really nicely dialed in.
Yeah, so it's a very specific sound. I think everybody knows it when they hear it. Orange got really big in my generation, like again in that like Warped Tour thing, like with all the heavy bands and everybody started playing Orange, and I was like, what are those? Those are great. And then the first time I actually played one in person, I was just, in fact, my first tube amp experience was actually a Tiny Terror. I was plugging into a Tiny Terror at a store, and I was like, wow, I'm doing it wrong. I need this in my life.
Yeah, that was the one that I really wanted for the longest time. I actually ended up building my own. I got this old Fender amp off Craigslist. He sold it to me for like $80 or something because it was broken. But when he gave it to me, it had all the tubes in it. It had like the spring tank. Just so many usable parts were still there. The speakers in great condition, the cabinets in great condition. So I basically just gutted it, and using the existing power and output transformer, I just designed I basically cloned the whole front end of the Tiny Terror with just a couple little tweaks, and then I rebuilt the original Fender output stage. And so it's kind of like a weird hybrid of like this, what is it, a Super 60 from Fender, and then the Tiny Terror Orange.
That's got to be pretty cool.
It's incredibly bitey. Like if you're gonna do some like really like heavy like tremolo picking, like palm muting stuff, like so much articulation.
How many watts is that?
I think it is the full 60 watts. It gets blisteringly loud for being a 112.
Yeah, I'm sure. I've never had anybody explain this to me, and maybe you can. I don't even know if I've asked it or if I've just wondered it in my head. I say so many things on this podcast, I don't even know. But when we're talking about wattages, right? So like I'm talking about like my 75 and you're talking about the 60, and they're like really loud. But they're not like, I also have this old like 120 watt solid state crate that's also very loud, but I would say that the 75 watt Fender is much louder. There seems to be this perception, at least amongst guitar players, that tube amps generally are louder per watt than solid state. But I don't know if that's really true. Is there any truth to that at all?
I mean, my life experience would say that it's absolutely true. Yeah. I don't quite know how to explain it. I just think it's got something to do with like the current delivery method and like RMS voltage versus peak. So I actually really don't know, but yeah, like every tube amp I have or have played has been 10 times louder than the equivalent wattage solid state.
It's a very strange thing. Yeah, it's like I have a 15 watt Benson Monarch that it probably wouldn't keep up in the Doom band, but it keeps up with most rock bands.
Yeah. And it's funny because like specifically with my band setup, like I literally had to buy that 1000 watt head because nothing else would keep up. Like I went through probably 5 or 6 different amps that were much lower in wattage, and I mean even like an 800 watt like Fender, it's just started farting out before it was even loud enough to be heard like next to the drum set.
It's amazing the volume that the Doom bands push. Like everyone's trying to be Sun, and it's just like, it's like I don't know who's louder, if they're louder or if Dinosaur Jr. is louder, but like it's amazing. Like I want to go to some of those shows just for that experience, but I also like fear for my ears.
Yeah,
which sounds like a band name, actually. Now that I say it, fear for my ears. I don't know.
Fear for ears.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever been to one of those concerts?
The really like blisteringly loud ones?
Yeah, obviously you play in one, but like, has there ever been one that I've heard people say that some bands are actually kind of scary to see because they're so loud.
I don't know. I guess I've been wearing earplugs for the last like 15 or 17 years or something. So, I mean, in terms of like any professional band, I don't know. I think it's been pretty balanced, like not terribly loud. I've definitely seen a few local bands where, I mean, it's like a full stack plus an extra, like 2x10 or something, where they just bring every piece of gear that they own and plug it in and turn it up, and in such a confined space, like you just can't stand there. You have to like go to the bar because you're just like, I can't do this. My heart is going to explode.
It's shaking my guts and my insides to their core. Bad stuff. So somehow we've gotten this deep in the conversation. We haven't actually talked about very many of your pedals other than that Fender Blender clone. What do you have for us? What are you making these days?
Okay, so the very first pedal I made, or released, I should say, it's a heavily modified clone of a FY2, Shinai FY2 / Companion Fuzz. It's got a really aggressive square wave sound to it. Pretty aggressive high pass filter as well. So it's like a buzz saw kind of sound. And so, yeah, that one, that's like one implication, or that's not the right word. What's the word? I'm having a moment.
I don't know. I don't know what word you're looking for. Iteration?
Yeah. Iteration.
No?
Yeah, there you go. That's the right word. Okay. So it's one iteration of the transistor biasing noise gating that I use.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and so it's probably one of my favorites. Like you just flip a toggle switch, it sounds 98% identical to when the toggle switch is not flipped, and you get zero noise even with like P90s single coils, but you get like all of that sound. Like you're not losing anything except the quiet tails of your sustain. So yeah, that was the first one. The second one that I did is an original design called Torsion. It's got 2 transistor stages, and then it goes into a LM386 power amp chip, which I know a lot of people like to use. And then like there's a whole tone section, and then your output buffer. That one I really like because it's got a linear gate to it, so you can really fine tune how much gating. Kind of like what I was talking about with the SSL console. Yeah, you can just, barely attenuate it or stomp on it. And then the third one that I put out was my version of a harmonic percolator. That one took absolutely forever to figure out because anytime I tried to put together like a direct clone, like same problem as that Fender Blender, the noise was almost as loud as the signal. So that one took probably 12 or 13 iterations before I finally got it. And yeah, I added a tone section to it, 2 noise gates actually to that one, an input boost and an output boost. And then lately I've been doing a lot of kind of random unofficial things. I'm in a little bit of a purgatory situation right now. I've been working on a bass overdrive / compressor for probably a year now. I work on it for a little while. I order the PCBs. Something's wrong with it, so I kind of shelve it for a few weeks, and then I come back to it, and I've just been doing that on a loop. But then I'm in the middle of a collaboration right now. Can't really give too many details right now, but I'm working with another very notable company. We're putting out a pedal which we both think is ridiculously awesome. Much more complex than anything I've done before. So yeah, if you're interested at all, keep an eye out for that. And then with all the terrible crap that's been going on in the world, I designed this little fuzz pedal that I call the 3904 because it uses 4 2N3904 transistors. And I've been selling those for pretty cheap and donating basically everything above cost to various charities and organizations doing good for the world. And then beyond that, I pulled out a couple what I'm going to call prototype designs that people think should not be prototypes. Yeah, I've got this one. I'm calling it broken because it's got a knob that just makes it sound incredibly broken.
Cool.
It's more or less it's more or less like a standard fuzz pedal, like your volume, tone, gain. But then it's got the knob that I labeled fix because as you turn it up, it makes it sound not broken.
I like that.
So yeah, that one, people are digging that one, and it kind of surprised me. That's just, it's the first pedal that I actually designed myself, and I was like, I think I'm the only one who's gonna like this. So I literally just shelved it for 3 years and busted it out recently, and yeah, so that one, I'm surprised and stoked that people are enjoying that one. And then there's this other one I have called a Degrade. I'm doing like a super small run of those. It's also super heavily gated. The circuit mostly started out as a fender blender, but I tweaked like every single stage of it. I got rid of the octave effect, added a clean filter. It's got like a clean bypass, and you can filter out all the highs. So if you want to play like bass with all your clean lows and then all your distorted highs, you can do that.
Cool.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. And then I'm also designing DI boxes now just because I want to.
Well, you don't need any other reason. That's the best reason to do anything, just because you want to.
Yeah.
Is there something specifically that you're looking to get out of a DI that you couldn't find?
Yeah, simplicity, I guess. I mean, that sounds really stupid because they're all incredibly simple, but so the one I have, it's just your instrument input, XLR output, and then you plug a 9 or 18 volt supply into it, and it just does what you want it to do. And the other one that I'm finalizing right now, it just runs on 48 volts phantom power from the console. So it's nice. Just, yeah, plug in, like one input, one output, done.
Yeah, that's something I kind of overlook, and that's probably because I'm a guitar player. But bassists they don't need a DI necessarily, but it's a very nice thing to have. And guitarists, I think, don't hardly ever think about that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, with a lot of consoles, you can definitely plug your instrument like right into it, and it doesn't really affect things. But there are definitely situations where if you do that, like the impedance mismatch will cause you to lose a lot of lows and or a lot of highs. And so, having the proper output impedance is kind of important for, some situations. And if you're in that situation, you're kind of boned if you don't have one.
Right.
But yeah, I assume that is much less of a concern with all guitar players.
Yeah, we don't know what we're doing. We just stomp on things and throw things around and hope for the best. Or maybe that's just me. That could just be me. Let's see here. Oh wow, this really flew by. We're getting down to the last little bit here, and Yay. I think we should probably start rolling into the classic questions and close this thing out. But before we do that, this is your chance to say whatever you want to say. Plug what you want to plug. If you got a message you wanted to get out to a few thousand people, now's a good time to do it.
Okay, so the personal plug I'll do is if you go to my website, dirtyhaggard.com, if you use the coupon code ORBIT, you will save 15%. So I encourage anyone who's interested to do that. And the second thing, I hate to be so incredibly cliche, but with the elections coming up, we all need to learn who is up for election in our local areas and vote, because things suck right now.
Yeah, and the locals actually, a lot of people overlook it in favor of the things at a national scale, but local is what affects you in your backyard, so it isn't a bad reminder.
Right, and the turnout is typically 30% or less of the voting population, so very important that we do that.
Definitely. All right, man. So here we go. This is another one of the classic questions. What is your favorite Boss pedal?
I feel like this is also going to be incredibly a cliche answer, but I really love the DS1.
Oh, my man.
I use it. Actually, I got so incredibly lucky. I was hanging out with my girlfriend, and I was like, you know what? I want to go up to, Brislone, I'm sure. It's kind of like a pawn shop, like right up in Vancouver. And I was like, I think I want to go there.
But I know of it. Yeah.
Okay, right on. I was just like, I want to go there and see if they have a DS1. And I show up, and they have like the limited edition 2017 black one. And so I was like, oh man, and I got it, and it was. They sold it to me for like $40 or something. So yeah, I absolutely love that thing. I use it more as like a heavy overdrive. But through like a good tube amp, I think it sounds great. I don't understand all the hate that it gets.
I just made a video about the DS1 2 weeks ago or so, and I was just like, listen, if you don't like this pedal, you're probably using it wrong. And I hesitate to be the guy that says wrong when it comes to music, because, if you like it, then I guess you're not doing it wrong. But I feel like everybody who complains about it, almost all of them that I see, they have the tone turned up past noon. And on a stock DS1, I don't think you can do that with very many rigs, I'll say.
Right.
I think that just doesn't sound very good.
I've seen a lot of guitar players get really great tone out of it. Like if they have like a Strat or something that's already really bright, they literally have the tone at minimum, and it sounds great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I don't know if that's. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I use it like definitely left of center, pretty heavily left of center.
Yeah, I usually have it around 9 or 10, somewhere in that ballpark for myself.
Yeah, that's like the magic
on almost
zone.
Any guitar. Even like my Les Pauls that are already pretty low, it's still somewhere around there. That's where it sounds good. I don't know why they included all that high end in it. I don't really understand that, what the thought process was there, but it's such a good circuit. It really is.
Yeah, and it's simple, and it just does exactly what it's supposed to do.
And the black ones sound better.
Because of their aesthetic, they absolutely do, yes.
Exactly. I knew you would agree. I also got incredibly lucky and found one of the Guitar Center black ones for sale. At Guitar Center, it was on sale for like $30. And I was like, damn. Yeah, I'm going to take that. It's a stock DS1. We kid, but not really. The black one. All right, last question of the show. So here we go. This is the one that people, I know you gave us a little bit of politics earlier, and that can get controversial, but this is what gets really controversial. This is the one that can make or break a company. What's your favorite kind of pizza?
I'm really tempted to just make up some absolute BS right now. I love it with American cheese. No, that's an abomination. So I like a standard cheese pizza with as many jalapenos and banana peppers as you can fit on it.
I'm about that life. Yeah.
There's so many great ways to make pizza, particularly with like vegetables on it. That's always my favorite. But when it's loaded with a variety of like hot and sweet peppers, I think that's pretty bomb.
Yeah, I'm on board with that. Since you're local, I can dig into this a little bit further. What are some of your favorite spots around here?
So I actually have a really sensitive stomach, which is funny to say after saying I like it full of jalapenos. But
okay,
when I eat like normal bread, I just erupt in gas. So I have to go for the gluten-free types because for whatever reason that just I digest it no problem. So mostly it's Mississippi pizza for me.
Okay. Mississippi. I don't think I've been there. I'll have to give them a try.
That's surprising
I also
to hear.
I'm south, so like I don't get into Portland as often as I used to because I'm in Oregon City. And on the way to Portland, there's quite a few good spots. So it's like I kind of have to already be up there to swing by somewhere else most of the time. I don't make the trek as often as pre-COVID, I was up there all the time. But like now I'm just kind of at home most of the time, so I don't venture out all that far. But Mississippi, I'll have to give that a try. My favorite one in Portland isn't currently open, I don't believe, and that's Checkerboard Pizza, which is in the Pine Street Market, and it's an offshoot of Ken's Artisan. It's very, very good.
Huh.
If you're ever feeling like braving the gluten, give their cheese slice a nibble. It's very, very delicious.
Word. I will have to make a note of that. I don't know that place.
Hopefully it opens back up. It hasn't been open this whole time, so I'm a little bit nervous, to be perfectly honest. But fingers crossed.
Yeah. I feel like we're going to lose probably half of like the best food places in the city.
And that's bad because that's one of the best things about living around here. The food is just top notch. I don't want to see. We already have lost some good ones. We lost. Why can't I think of the name of the place? It always does this. It's under the Morrison Bridge. Montage. We lost that.
Oh
place.
yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar. That place was great.
Yeah, that one. I thought I heard that Pok Pok was closing. I don't know if was there like a temporary thing or if that's.
They closed a bunch of restaurants. They closed basically all the satellite locations, and I don't think they've reopened the main location, but they permanently closed all the satellite locations from what I remember. And then they're kind of like in a holding pattern with the main one. They're doing some like meal kits and things like that right now. So I made sure to go get involved because that's definitely one of my favorite spots. Like, man, I love Pok Pok so much. It can't go away. Anyway, well, that's a depressing note to wrap this up on. If you live in Portland, go get some takeout from Pok Pok. Help them survive. Please do it.
Do it.
Everybody do it. Plus, Andy's a really nice guy. He's donated to a couple like Tone Mob related giveaways, and he seems like a good dude. All right. Well, Nick, you got anything else for the people?
F word.
Okay. All right. Sure. All right, everybody. For Nick, this is Blake. And as always, folks, good luck and good tones. All right. There we have it. There's another one in the can. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, there's more. There's more over on Patreon. If you go to patreon.com/tonemob for $5 a month, you support the show and you get extra episodes delivered to your ears every week. And on this one, Nick discusses a rather odd incident with cocaine, which I guess when cocaine is involved, it tends to be an odd incident, I would imagine. So you can go to check that one out over at Patreon if you have the ability. If not, thank you so much for listening anyway. Share this with a friend. Tell somebody about it. Honestly, the downloads matter so much. They really, really do. So thank you. And I'll be back soon with another episode for you. All right, talk to you next time. Bye-bye. One last thing before we totally sign off here. I just want to remind you that if you do any shopping at Stringjoy, that's Stringjoy guitar strings made in Nashville, that will help me out as well. As I've said for years, I'm heavily involved in that company, and I really do think they're making the best products on the market. So if you would like to try custom strings, go to tonemob.com/stringjoy and check them out today. I seriously love what the team down there is doing. I help them out with all kinds of things, and by you supporting them, you are also supporting me as well. And hey, you need some strings, so why not get some custom strings just for your guitar and playing style? Again, the link for that is tonemob.com/stringjoy, and that will take you right to their website, and you can do all your shopping through there, and that will help everyone involved out. So thank you very much. Talk to you next time. We are brought to you by the wonderful folks at Gun Street Wiring Shop. Yes, Gun Street Wiring Shop. I've talked about them before. I used to say based out of Bend, Oregon, but guess what? Sean moved to my neck of the woods. Sean's in Portland. Sean is awesome and has helped me with a bunch of stuff lately. And if you have wiring needs for your guitar, he can help you too. If you want to get weird with it, he can get weird. If you just need to spruce things up a little bit, there's your guy. He takes all the guesswork out of doing your guitar wiring, and he makes it simple, and his customer service is top-notch, and I can't say enough good things about Gun Street as a company. I really respect Sean and what he's all about, and the product is top-notch. I've got 3 different guitars that now have Gun Street harnesses in them, and I could not be happier. So go to gunstreetwiringshop.com and check them out.